Good afternoon, students. Can you hear me? Enakshi, Archie, Kusum, Amit, can you hear me? Arohi, can you hear me? Just write yes or no. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, Suchita. Okay. Thank you. So today we are going to discuss about the part 6 portion of the chapter. The chapter is the heredity and evolution. Today we are going to discuss about the chapter 6, part 6 of the chapter heredity and evolution. Okay. So already we have discussed all these things, what is the genetic material, what is the hereditary material, how sex is determined in our body, and what is the main importance of this genetic material, what is the main importance of this hereditary material, and the Mendel's experiment. The preliminary hypothesis or law of the Mendel's experiment. So today we are going to discuss about the acquired and inherited trait. Today we are going to discuss about the acquired and inherited traits. Okay. So what I am saying, just listen to me very carefully and please note it down, because this slide is very important for your exam. Rimjim, Adiba, Gurmeet, Satinder, and the rest of the student, Piyush, Sanjana, all the students, just listen to me what I am saying. These slides are very important for all of you, because from this slide a maximum question will come. So that's why what I am saying, just note it down, the important points. Okay. Who is Vikrant? How many times I have told the what is the meaning of traits? From the first portion, for the first part of this chapter, I am starting to telling this what is the meaning of the traits. Actually, traits means the characters. How many times I have to tell all these things? So this is the portion that the name of the slide, the heading of the slide is the acquired and inherited traits. Acquired and inherited traits. I am repeating again the traits. The traits, there is a term, the traits means the characteristics. The trait means the characteristics. So I am repeating again myself, the trait means the characteristics. So acquired and so today we are going to learn about the acquired and inherited traits. Okay. So the first we should know the definition of the acquired trait and definition of the inherited traits. So first we should know the definition of the acquired trait. So what is the meaning of the acquired trait? The acquired trait means a trait of an organism which is not inherited but develops in response to the environment is called an acquired trait. A trait or any characteristics of an organism which is not inherited. This is the main important point of this definition. This is the main important point. Just note it down. This trait of an organism is not inherited but develops in response to the environment is called an acquired trait. So what is this? It is the meaning. So this is the meaning that the traits, the different types of the characteristics is not inherited, like our skin color, like our hair color, all these things, all these character, all these traits are inherited from the parents body. But our any types of the habit, like the different types of the skill, like cycling, swimming, all those things are not the inherited, are the acquired. Acquired means the when we taking all these things from the outside, when we gather knowledge from the outer environment, that's called the acquired. When we gathered information, when we gathered knowledge from the outside of our environment, that's called the acquired trait. So what is the definition of this? The definition of this, a trait of an organism which is not inherited but develops in response to the environment is called an acquired trait. So this is the basic definition of the acquired trait. So what is the meaning of this? I am repeating again, those characteristics are not inherited. Actually those characteristics are we can gather, we can we can learn all these characteristics from the outside of the environment, that's called the acquired. Acquired means the taking outside, acquired means the adapt, acquired means the meaning of the acquired is the adapt. Suchita, you have written Ma'am, everyone's skin color is not same. Obviously everyone's skin color is not same. This is the inheriting character, na. This skin color, this hair color, this eye color, how I am looking, all these things are depend on our parents' body. The 50% character from the mother's body, 50% character from the father's body, then it mixed together and form a new characteristic. This is the inheriting character. But our swimming skill, our writing skill, our any type of any other skill, dancing skills, singing skills, all these things, how we behaved with other person, these all these things we acquired from the environment, we acquired, we actually we gather knowledge from the others people. That's called the acquired trait. That's called the acquired trait. Okay, so actually this is the common sense. Okay, so the acquired traits cannot be passed on to the future generation. Suppose I am very good at in swimming. Okay, I am very good in swimming, I am very good in writing, I am very good in dancing. Okay, so that does not mean my future generation can do all these things in very good way. Okay, that does not mean my future generation can do all these things in a very good way. So that does not mean there is no guarantee of this. Okay, so the acquired traits cannot be passed on to the future generation. This is the main point. This is the main point. The acquired traits cannot be passed on to the future generation. Please note it down, or this point, because this is important point, and without these points your number will be 0. So there will be no value of your answer. So please note it down. The main important point is that the trait or the characteristics, if you forgot, I am repeating again, if you forgot this term, this trait, then don't write. Just write the character. A character or a trait of an organism which is not inherited, but develops in response to the environment is called an acquired trait. So this is the basic difference of this, or this is the basic definition of this. Okay, so please go through this slide very well. Please go through this definition very well, because it will definitely come in your exam, any exam. Okay, so this is important for your exam, for your 1 or 2 marks question. So next is the what is the example, which one is the example of the acquired trait. The main example of the acquired traits are, this is the knowledge of doing something or any characteristics which was caused due to environmental factors and not present by birth. So what is the meaning of this? The knowledge of doing something, the gathering the knowledge from the outside, the gathering the knowledge, any type of knowledge, like our swimming skill, our writing skill, our dancing skill, our walking skill, our feeding habit, all these things, all this we gather knowledge, all these things, or any characteristics which are caused due to environmental factors and not present by birth. All these things are caused due to the environmental factors. Okay, for the adaptation, for the better adaptation, for the better survivability, we should gather knowledge of all these things. So this is the basic scenario of the acquired traits. So I am repeating again myself, what is the meaning of the acquired traits? Acquired traits means a trait of an organism which is not inherited. Either a trait or characteristics of an organism which is not inherited. Inherited means which is not carried out by the genes. Which is not inherited means which is not carried out by genes and develops in response to the environment, that's called the acquired trait. So this is the basic things, and acquired traits cannot be passed on to the future generation. So this is the basic points, or this is the main points of the acquired traits, that these traits cannot be passed on to the future generation, because this is our gathering knowledge, this is not our the hereditary material. Why these acquired traits cannot be passed on to the future generation? Because this is our gathering knowledge. This is our gathering knowledge for our better survivability, for better existence. But this is not our hereditary material that it can be passed from the parents to offspring body and generation after generation. Only the hereditary material passed the future generation, not the acquired traits, not the gathering knowledge. So the knowledge of doing something or any characteristics which was caused due to the environmental factors and not present by birth. Okay, so this is the basic things. And remember one thing, remember one point, that this acquired traits is always developed after the birth. This is not developed before birth. Okay, these acquired traits are always seen after the birth. So this is also a main important point. So this is the basic things of the acquired trait. Now let's start our inherited traits. What is the meaning of the inherited traits? So from this definition we get to know that what these traits are coming in our body through the inheriting material. So a trait of an organism which is caused by a change in its DNA or genes is called the inheriting trait. What does it mean? A trait or characteristics of an organism which is caused by a change in its DNA or genes is called an inherited trait. So what does it mean? It means this character coming from our parents body, these character coming from our parents body and through the changes in its DNA or genes. So that's called the inheriting traits. So these are characters which we received from our parents. These are characteristics which we receive from our parents. So this is also an important point of the inheriting trait, that these characteristics which we receive from our parents, that's called the inherited traits, and only these traits can be transmitted to future generation, not the acquired trait. Only these traits can be transmitted to the future generation. So this is the basic things, this is the basic definition of the inherited trait and basic difference between the acquired and inherited trait, that the acquired trait cannot be transmitted to future generation because this is our gathering knowledge. This is our gathering knowledge for our better adaptation, for our better survivability. But inheriting trait can be transmitted to the future generation because this is our inheriting material, this is our hereditary material, and this material coming from our DNA or genes, okay, from our parents body. So like the example is the skin color, eye color, all these things. Already I have said all these things. So remember one thing, there will be might be one question, the what is the main difference between the acquired traits and inheriting traits. Just note it down what I am saying. First point of the acquired traits will be the, just write it, please just write it, boys and girls, everyone, because this is important for your exam. What is the main difference between the acquired trait and inheriting trait? What is the main difference between the acquired trait and inherited trait? The first point of the acquired trait is, okay Piyush, I am waiting, but please be fast. Please hurry up because I have to complete this slide. This is important for your exam, that's why I am telling you, please note it down everyone. What is the main difference between the acquired traits and inheriting traits? Acquired traits and inherited traits. Just the first point of the acquired traits, just write the first point of acquired traits. These traits or characters, these characters of an organism is not inherited, is not inherited. These traits or characters of an organism is not inherited from parents body, is not inherited from parents body. And write the first point of the inherited traits. These characters of an organism, these characters of an organism is inherited from our parents body, is inherited from our parents body. And the next point of the acquired traits, these traits cannot be passed. The second point of the acquired traits, these traits cannot be passed on to the future generation. These traits cannot be passed on to the future generation. And the second point of inherited traits, these traits or characters can pass generation after generation. And the last point of acquired traits, example, The last point of acquired traits is the example. Write any example like swimming, dancing, writing, all these things. Any types of gathering or acquiring skill like the walking skill, writing skill, singing skill, swimming skill, or any other skills. And the example of the inherited traits, that the eye color, skin color, etc. Eye color, skin color, etc. So this is the basic things. This is the basic things of the acquired and inherited traits. So what I am repeating again, the acquired traits means the which characters we gathered from the outside, which characters we gathered from the outside, not inherited from our parents' body, that's called the acquired traits. And the inherited traits means those characters are acquired from our parents' body and inherited generation after generation, that's called the inherited traits. So this is the basic difference, or this is the basic thing between the acquired and inherited traits. Now tell me, if you have any doubts you can ask me. Okay, Arohi, okay, Gurmeet, Arohi, Pooja, okay. Now tell me, any problem is there, or either I will proceed the next slide. Any problem is there, any doubt is there? If you have any doubt you can ask me. I am repeating again and again, if you have any problem you can ask me, because this is your doubt clearing class. But okay Piyush, but don't write any rubbish things and write your doubts in English sentences. Okay, okay Amit. So next slide is the variations may or may not help organisms to survive. So actually this is not important for your exam. Just listen to me what I am saying, because this is important for your better understanding. Okay. So variations may or may not help organisms to survive. What does it mean? It means that for our better living, so evolution is must. So we should adapt different types of variation for our survivability. Okay, so this is our basic things. So the some variations help organism to survive. Some variations help organisms to survive. It means there are some beetles. There is an example that there are some beetles living in green grasses. Okay, they increase their number by reproduction. This is the common thing. This is the common phenomenon, or this is the common event of a living things. Crows can easily see the red beetle and they are eaten by the crows. Okay. So that during reproduction, due to some variation, some green beetles are produced instead of the red beetles. So their variation comes. Their variations comes, but why the variation? These variations needed because to protect themselves. To protect themselves, the variation is needed, because these all the red beetles are eaten by the crows. So we should evolve ourselves, and we should produce some variations in our body to protect ourselves from the environment, from the predator. Predator means the who eat us, that's called the predator, and prey means the me. This beetles is the prey and the crows are the predator. Prey and predator relationship, that's called the prey and predator relationship. So during the reproduction, due to some variations, some green beetles are produced in these instead of the red beetles. So this is the basic things, this is the basic variation. The green beetles are not visible to crows and are not eaten by them. So this is the basic thing, this is the protection measurement of the which these green beetles taken, to protect themselves from the crows, to protect themselves from the predator. That's why the variation is needed for our better survivability. That's why the variation is needed in our body for our better survivability. This is the basic things. Then gradually the population of the red beetle decreases and the population of the green beetle increases. This variation has helped the organism to survive. If there were no variation, if there would be no variation in their body, then what happened? Then what would be happened? Then all the beetles family become eaten by the crows. Then all the beetles family are eaten by the crows. Then what will be the consequence? All beetle families become destroyed. So for their survivability, for their better survivability, what would be they taken? They actually they taken some measurement process. The measurement process is the variation. Actually they produce different types of the variations in their body, and with this variation they can protect themselves from the predator. So this is the basic things, because that's why we can say that the variation is needed, the variation is required, and variation is the fundamental thing in our life for our better survivability, for our better survivability. Okay, so this is the basic things. So next is the some variations do not help organism to survive. What does it mean? During the sexual reproduction, a color variation occurs in red beetles and some blue beetles are produced instead of the red beetles. Okay, both the red and blue beetles are visible to crows and are eaten by them. So then the population of both red and blue beetles decreases. So this variation has not helped the organism to survive. Now there is the another, always remember, one coin has two sides. Okay, always remember that one coin has two sides. So everything has two consequences, one positive consequence, one negative consequence. Every incident, everything has their two consequences, one positive things, one negative things. Everything has two sides, one positive sides, one negative sides. Okay, so what is the negative side? Negative side is that during this all this variation, when the variations is occurred in their bodies, so apart from the green beetles there all produce some blue beetles also, but these red and blue beetles are become visible to crows. Okay, so the crows can easily eat these all these beetles family. So then the population of both red and blue beetles become decreased. Okay, so this is the negative variation. This is the negative side of the variation, that the variation has not helped the organism to survive. So we can say that everything has two sides, one positive sides and one negative side. So this is the basic thing. So each and everything, each and every incident, each and everything has two sides. One has the positive sides, one has the negative side. The positive sides of the variation, what happened? When the red beetles converted to the green beetles through the variation, then the green beetles are not seen to the crows. So crows cannot eat all these green beetles, and they become survive. These green beetles, this beetles family become survive. But during the variation, during this all these things, during all this mutation process, there are some blue beetles also there, but these red and blue beetles become visible to crows and are eaten by them. So then the population of both red and blue beetles become decreased. So this is the basic thing, this is the negative side of the variation. This is the negative side of the variation, and this is the positive side of the variation. So that's why we can tell that each and everything has two sides, each and every incident has two consequences. One has the positive consequence, another one is the negative consequence. Okay, and the next is the acquired traits cannot be passed from one generation to the next. Acquired traits cannot be passed from one generation to the next. So example, if the population of beetles increases and plants are affected by disease, if the population of beetles increases and plants are affected by disease, then the food available for the beetles decreases and their body weight also decreases. Then what happen? Then the beetles family become destroyed. So this is the basic thing. So what happen if the population of the beetles increases and plants are affected by disease? Because for their feeding habits, beetles are solely dependent on the plant's body. For their feeding habit, the beetles are solely dependent on the plant's body. Okay, so then the food available for the beetles, but when plants are affected by the disease, for any type of disease, if the plants are affected by any type of disease, then what happen? Then the plants population become destroyed. Then the plants decreased, and these plants are the main source of their food. For the beetles, these plants are the source of their food, but is the plants availability, the number of the plants is become decreased, then what would happen? Then because they does not get any foods, they does not get any food source, so and their body weight also decreases. So without food their body weight also decreases. If after a few years the availability of the food increases, then the body weight of the beetles also increases. So this acquired trait cannot be passed from one generation to the next, because there is no change in the genetic composition. Now tell me, what is the meaning of this? Actually the meaning of this, when the plant population become decreased, so they suffer a lot, okay, but there are no variation, there are no genetic mutation happened in their body. But when after a few years, when the food availability become increased, on then their body weight become also increased, because they can feed easily. So the beetles family also increase. So this is the acquired trait. This is not any genetic inherited trait that their variation is happened in their body, they can survive without plants body, nothing like that happened. So this acquired trait cannot be passed from one generation to the next, because there is no changes in their genetic composition, because this is the natural phenomenon, this is the natural thing, that when the plant population become decreased, then the beetles cannot eat. When the plant population become increased, the beetles can eat. So this is the basic scenario, this is the basic thing. There will be no mutation of the DNA, there is no changes, there is no variation in their body happen. Okay, so that's why this is the acquired trait, this is not the inheriting trait. That's why this cannot be passed from one generation to the next, because we all know that the acquired traits cannot pass to the next generation, one generation to the next generation. This always happen with the inheriting trait. So this is the basic scenario, this is the basic things of acquired trait and inherited traits, and this is the basic difference between the acquired traits and inheriting traits. Now tell me, if you have any doubts you can ask me, because this is the last slide for today, and tomorrow we will discuss the Mendel's experiment, because before classes in previous classes we will discuss, already we have discussed the laws, already we have discussed the different types of the two laws of the Mendel's, and tomorrow we will discuss the experiment of the Mendel's. So now tell me, if you have any doubts you can ask me. Okay, okay, thank you, and please don't be absent tomorrow, because tomorrow's class is very important for all of you. Tomorrow's class is very important for all of you, because we will discuss the Mendel's experiment. Okay, so please don't be absent. Okay, thank you.